What's up guys, welcome back to another GGF video. Now today we're going to be taking a look at our Phanteks Shift X build we recently did. Now instead of doing a time-lapse video, I've done a heap of those in the last month. I think it's about 5 or 6. So I thought I'd do something different and just sort of go over the build I've done, do a bit of B-roll on the different parts, and also stay tuned for later on in this video as I will be announcing a New Year celebration competition that has been sponsored by ASRock. So let's jump in and have a look at, just talk about the case itself first. If you're not familiar, Phanteks released these I think at the start of 2017. They were announced at CES. It will be interesting to see what they bring out in CES next week. But yeah, so this is the Shift X. This is the X model. It is slightly taller. They have a non-X model, which is simply just the Shift, and it is comes about this high. Now this is a universal case that can be stood up like this. Now the sort of surface area that this takes up is really small. It's about the size of a standard tissue box, and then it just goes straight up. Now you can also lie this down sort of flat, kind of like a sound bar. I haven't tried that yet. The only issue is when doing that with a full custom loop, you have to be careful things like if you've got a long tube reservoir on like a pump combo, you're not just straining it, and it is sort of got pressure with all the liquid in, and it might sort of slope down a bit. And you also have to remember, if you are sort of lying the system down, you have to remember that the reservoir doesn't sort of drain where the in for the pump isn't sucking in air. So that's why I've stuck with it up this way, and I do think it looks pretty sick like this. Now bear in mind this red pattern on the front, the case doesn't come like this. I threw this on just to sort of give it a bit of aesthetics on the front. I did go for a all sort of red theme. I'll fire this up later on. I won't fire it up now because there are a lot of RGB lights, but I've configured them all red. I've got the Lian Li Bora fans, I configured those red. I've got the, I've bought a extra LED strip. The Phanteks Shift case does come with support to add one of their LED strips. It's actually got support to add 2 of their RGB strips in. That just simply plugs into sort of like a connector up the top, and you can control that via the top next to the power button, so you can cycle through different colors and patterns. So I've thrown that in, I've set that to red, and I've also got the G.Skill Trident Z RGB memory, which I have configured to red. So what I'll do is I'll just take off some of the panels so we're not getting any glare. I really do like how you just pop the top up. It's just really thick aluminium cover, kind of feels like a heat sink up there. So if I pull these covers off, very well done. Everything is sort of removable on this case, and if you're wondering what it's like to work in, I was really surprised. I thought I was going to have a nightmare trying to fit all this gear in, but Phanteks have done a really good job on laying all this out. All right, just let me slide this one. So these simply unscrew and then they slide up and then out. I'll just lay this one down. And then same with the other one over here. So yeah, it's good how they're not just secured on by the fourth thumb screws and they just like sort of push off. So I've completely undone that now, and it is not going anywhere. It simply just lifts up and then pops out, which is a nice touch. Okay, so now we've got access to both sides. I might actually stand up. It might actually make it a little bit easier. So as you can see, this side we have our motherboard side. I've got the ASRock X370 ITX AC motherboard, very nice little board, and I do have the Ryzen 1600X i5 in there, and as you can see, the Trident Z RGB memory. Adding some sleeve cables does make it a little bit harder for cable routing. As you can see, it's not really designed too well with these real big bulky cables. I did have to bring them around. And then you might be wondering why they're all going down to the bottom here. This is where your SFX only support, so it won't take a normal size PSU. It has to be SFX, fits down the bottom here. And then this little area here is just sort of a shroud, which I really do appreciate because it does hide the bulk of the cables. Now I won't undo this side here. This is more sort of the back. You can see down the bottom, your power goes in the bottom there. And then I do have a lot of cables sort of squished up around here for this panel to go on. That's why it's looking pretty neat inside, because a lot of my cables are down the bottom and then in this panel here. So moving on to some of the other things I've added in this build. So I do have quite a large reservoir for this case, or for this size of case. Now for me it was a little bit easy because I have such a plethora of hardware, all water cooling gear. I could simply just swap out the res until I got the size I wanted. I could swap out the radiator until the size I wanted and the right thickness and whatnot. But I guess for a consumer purchasing this case, sort of for a once-off and choosing hardware for this case, you're going to have to be careful on what you can fit in. I'm not sure how many other reviews or builds that are using water cooling gear, but I can tell you I've got a 53mm thick bits power. That was a very tight fit. I wouldn't recommend going with a 53 or anything higher. Probably stick to a 30 or a 45mm, because as you can see, when I spin this around, you can see the water cooled video card comes down to here, and it's literally, I would say it is resting on that fan. It's not pushing it out of the way, but it is literally touching the fans down here. So just bear in mind with areas like that. I also do like, you can see the video card is hanging down here. It does use a riser cable that runs around the back, runs in the middle, and then flops back around over into the slot. So very, very hidden, and makes it very, very clean. Now you can spin the video card around in this same area, but you can just switch it around on this bracket, so you can either see the back plate or you can see the water cooling channels. But of course I had to opt to see the water cooling channels because I think seeing the back plate just doesn't do it justice. All right, so we talked about some of the cooling. I do like how you can sort of play around with this case a bit. Like I've gone with the tubing run, gone with hard tubing, 12mm outer diameter. I've gone up this way, and then I've gone up the top here. Now you've got quite a lot of playroom up the top here. So my first sort of concern was, how am I going to get the tubing going from one side to the other side over to the GPU? Now the main issue is it's pretty much completely blocked from each side. I didn't want to have to go back down, around, and then back up this side. So up the top here, I'll throw a B-roll shot on. It's actually got a lot of room up here. This is for sort of all your I/O, your input, your output, your DisplayPort cables, your USB, and I would say it's got more room than what you're ever going to need. By the time you plug in, say, 2 or 3 USB, plug in your DisplayPort for your video card, I managed to still fit a bit of flexi tube that joins up this link here and just simply runs it straight down. And there was actually a little hole, if I spin it around, up in this corner here. So I just managed to drop it down and then straight into the video card. So you basically can't even really see or tell that is a bit of flexi tube. And then it just joins back on with the hard tube and continues going. So that is really good. I'm not sure if they thought that out, but I did have to drill out this little bit of mesh up top to add in my little pass-through fitting. Close that down. So yeah, power button up here, and then you have your LED adjustment there. So what I might do is I might fire this up, and then actually I wonder if I'll just actually take the front off just to show you. So the front sort of comes off the same as the side panels, and then you just lift like that. So in terms of air intake, it's a bit sort of mismatched. It's not really like a traditional case. You don't have flow coming in the front, then out or the back or the top. There is a spot for a fan at the very bottom down here which sucks it up. And then you do have your spot for a 240. It actually does take a 280 radiator as well, but just bear in mind it's going to be even a tighter squeeze than this. And then you can see you do have ventilation along the sides here. So I'm basically sucking in here, and then I'm going up a little bit, and then I'm going back out, because there's no real way to have a fan on the top to blow the top hot air out. So the best one you can use is the one at the front here. Just let me throw this back on. Screw it back up. So everything uses captive thumb screws, which is really nice. So you're not left with, because by the time you take all 4 side panels off, the front and the back and each side, if they weren't captive, you'd have like 8 screws just floating around. All right, I'm gonna plug this in. Yep, I got power on there. Let's fire this up. The fans are probably going to be a different color. Yep, because these Boral ones seem to default back to a standard mode. Put them to red. RAM probably isn't going to be right until it boots up into Windows. Yeah, so I've set it to like a red cycle mode, but that's not going to show anything until Windows loads and throws on the software for it. We'll see if it does boot into Windows. It might get stuck on keyboard, but hopefully it gets past it. But yeah, while that's booting up, I'll talk about the competition. I'll throw a link in below on what you have to do. It's not much to do, and I'll probably run it for, since this video goes live, and I'll run it for a few days. Now, we'll be in CS when it finishes, so I'll try my best to choose the winners while I'm there, and ASRock will be sending out the gear directly to those winners. So first prize is ASRock are providing the ASRock X370 Gaming ITX AC. This is probably one of the best MITX Ryzen boards out there. It's a really nice little board, and they will be throwing in a Ryzen 5. Now, I'm not entirely sure what Ryzen 5, they just said a Ryzen 5, so that could be any of the 2 or 3 that are out there. So that is that's first place. Now, this is worldwide. they will be shipping it anywhere, or as far as they can possibly ship it. I can't see them having any issues. Second prize, I don't have an actual item here, but they are providing a AB250 gaming ITX AC motherboard, so still a really nice little motherboard. So that's just the motherboard only. And then for third prize, they will be sending, they sent me a packet or a pack which I already have. They're sending out this sweet, awesome ASRock hat. It's like the sort of proper baseball cap that's got the sticker like the collector ones, and then it's got like the Tai Chi, the Extreme, the Pro, and just some of their motherboards on top. So that's a really nice hat there. And then they're sending out these enormous mouse pads. ASRock has been doing these for a while now. I believe they're sending out the Threadripper X399 one, which is this one. These are huge. These are about 1 meter by about 400 wide, very, very nice and thick, and they are stitched around the sides. So I actually have a few of these. They do them in the different platforms like X299 and so on. Anyway, did this one light up with the red? Yep, so I've got the red pattern going on there, and then once you put all the side panels on, it gives you a really nice glow all around the case. But yeah, very, very interesting case. It's not going to be for everyone. It is a tight squeeze, and you might be running like, where does storage go? If you have a look around here, there were 2 SSD mounts on the back here, and I believe there's also 2 more SSD mounts inside. You do have to purchase additional brackets in here, and there's actually no way I would have been able to utilize these 2 SSD brackets with all this water cooling in there. But there is option, if you were going with an all-in-one cooler and an air-cooled video card, you will have a bit more room to play with. Anyway, that's it for this video. I just want to thank ASRock for supporting this competition. Be sure to check out the competition link down below. I want to thank you guys for watching, and stay tuned for next time.